What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Head Trip. I'm Chris Begley. I'm really excited to be here with you guys. This is our first official episode of the new show. Don't want to go into too many specifics, but we're moving away from the Geek Gospel brand and we're starting something new, starting something fresh. It's just me this go around, and I'm excited to bring it to you. That's it for that. Brand new show, brand new community. I'm excited. Some things I want to talk about today. We're going to go over Superman. It's been out for a week, the better part of a week. I had the opportunity to see it for the Amazon Prime early premiere back on Tuesday, I believe it was, and got to see it at the Irvine Regal IMAX. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some fun stuff. Mortal Kombat, it's back in the news. Mortal Kombat 2, they released a trailer along with a whole gang of new posters and all that good stuff. We're gonna dive into that. We're gonna dive into some Stranger Things, some James Gunn comments about the future of DCU. We're gonna keep it light and easy today. First thing I want to talk about is some stuff I've been watching. There's been I had the opportunity to dive into a couple different shows and movies, and I figured it'd be a good opportunity to talk about these things. So what have I watched? I've watched this is gonna seem random, The Tax Collector. This is the one with Shia LaBeouf. Directed by David Ayer, coming off the coattails of, their first, they worked together on Fury with Brad Pitt. Wonderful, fantastic film. Tax Collector came out in 2018. I took my time getting around to seeing this because I heard nothing but bad things, unfortunately. I know, Shia LaBeouf is a troublesome actor. He's got a lot of discourse in the news. He's done a lot to try to make amends regarding all that as well. But I know that Hollywood and a lot of people have a pretty bad taste in their mouth regarding Shia LaBeouf, and for good reason. He hasn't been the best person. But regarding The Tax Collector, terrible. I'm usually not the one that likes to jump in here and say too many negative things about different projects, but The Tax Collector just wasn't doing it for me. It was just very lackluster. It wanted so much to be like, I don't know if for those of you who don't know, like Shia LaBeouf got a full-on chess piece for this project. And I think we can all agree that's a little over the top regarding everything. Let's share this so we can get a pretty good idea of, whoa, that's not what we want. We want this bad boy. Remove. There we go. That's what we're looking. We're looking at Tax Collector. So Tax Collector, again, directed by David Ayer and starring Shia LaBeouf. I don't even know what that one is. This is the one that we want to look at. Shia LaBeouf, and starring Bobby Soto. I'm not too familiar with his work, but honestly, the performances were a little bit phoned in. Shia LaBeouf tried, his hardest to be, he's a method actor. We all know that. We all know that he's a method actor. We all know that he likes to really dive into these characters, but this just wasn't doing for me. He got all tatted, for which I'm not even sure. I can't even remember if you even see his tattoos whatsoever within the movie. I don't think that you even see his chest tattoos one time. Which is unfortunate, considering he went and got an entire chest tattoo. But homeboy, he's in all these movies, fantastic work. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't even say this is sleeper. This is bad acting, bad visuals, bad editing. The music just wasn't there. It wanted to be like, what was that one David Ayer movie? The one with Christian Bale, Harsh Times, whatever the name of that one is. That's such a good movie. And I thought, this would be something along those lines, but it just wasn't. It missed. What else? I saw, I think I even had like a list of things that I kind of wanted to mention of things that I watched. We watched Sinners. Sinners is back on HBO, or is on HBO Max. If, for those of you that haven't, gotten around to seeing it a second time or haven't seen it in general. God damn, what a good movie. What a wonderful movie. But yeah, ran that back and it still holds up, man. That scene, that performance scene when they're at the, when they're in the Jeep joint and what's his name? Miles, Catton, Sammy, his character goes in and does their performance and he goes through the eras and the generation. Oh, that still gets me. That scene is still such a beautiful scene. And I'm reeling from that still. And all the great performances as well. Hailey Stanfield, Michael B. Jordan. We got the cast right here. Jack O'Connell. I mean, we don't even have to go into too much about his performance. Bo Chow. I mean, So many wonderful performances in the movie, and this is going to be like one of those once a year watches for me. But still, really, really good. Had the opportunity to run it back, and we were immediately on it. So couldn't recommend that enough. Coming off of that as well is Jurassic World Rebirth. I was able to catch this in theaters too, and I'm a big fan of these Jurassic World movies. I really like these. I know that they're not necessarily always the best stories. We've had the previous trio with Chris Pratt, and those were fine, especially the first one. The first one was good. The second two were okay. They're good enough. And this franchise is always going to bring in a ton of money, which is a nice thing. But I gotta say, this movie didn't do a whole lot for me. I liked it. Don't get me wrong. I enjoyed it. I would maybe watch it again because it kind of like gives me that Skull Island kind of vibe and feel, which I'm all about in these disaster movies. We've seen so many of these movies where, they take these creatures, they're either these creatures or dinosaurs or kaijus, and then or robots or mechas or whatever, mechs. And they introduce them into the real world environment, and they're in the cities and they're destroying everything. And while that's fun to look at, you can't help but be like, okay, well, what's with all this destruction and the money and everything that kind of goes along with rebuilding? So I really like the idea that they kind of pivoted away from that, and they moved it to kind of like a more desolate location where all these dinosaurs are existing. And it's spoiler warning if you haven't seen it. Not going to try to give away too much that you're not going to see already in the trailer. Scarlett Johansson, on the other hand, wonderful performance. She did really, really, really well. I really liked her in this. Mahershala Ali, obviously always fantastic in whatever he's in. Eddington, we need to see that. It's out right now. We need to get some tickets. Jonathan Bailey, I wanted to point out a great addition to this franchise and to this movie. I think he did so well. I really liked him in Wicked, and I'm excited to see his career just continue to blossom and see him in a lot more things. Other than that, everybody else did really well. No, Rupert Friend, he was great. No performances to really kind of like really harp on, but this movie is fine. If you're a big fan of these movies, I think you're going to get into it and you're going to like it. It's got some really great visuals. It's got some fun chases, some fun little battles, but overall, it's okay. It was just fine, and definitely worth seeing if you haven't had the opportunity. I think that's going to be it for what we've watched. I've watched a few things. Always on our daytime television, our 90-day. Netflix has these really great train wreck series that's been going on. They've had the Astro World one. They had the Poop Cruise. They've had a few different ones. I think they just released the Balloon Boy one. They have the American Peril. Those are great. Those are wonderful shows. If you haven't watched, wonderful little docs. They're about an hour each. I don't know if any of them have multiple episodes. I don't think they do. I think they're all just about an hour long, which is fantastic, super digestible. That's Trainwreck on Netflix if you haven't watched that. But all right, let's get into it. Let's get into something that I really, really want to talk about, which is Superman. It's out. Superman is out. It has been about a week, like I said, it's since Superman came out, and the internet is still reeling. What a fantastic film. What an accomplishment from James Gunn. This movie, it made me feel like a kid again. I'm not going to say that I was one of those people that were super like caught into the crosshairs of whether or not this is going to be good and all the online discourse. I believed in this project. I'm a huge James Gunn fan. I loved Guardians of the Galaxy 1. I love Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Really liked Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Had a ton of heart. Even though I know that it's a little lower on most people's list, but I really like that movie. I like Slither's fantastic. Super. I love Super with Rainn Wilson. So, and then obviously the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker, wonderful series. But man, this movie was something special. This is going to be, Devin Cornsweet is obviously going to be the Superman for a new generation. The same way Henry Cavill was a Superman for an entire generation, even kind of bleeding into our generation, I guess you would say, like Christopher Reeves was for his generation. You could even go back and say Tom Welling and Dean Cain were semi-Superman for a type of culture at the time. But this movie is just fantastic. The performances just across the board. David Cornsweet, Superman. Rachel Brosnahan's Lois Lane. Eddie Gathegi's Miss Terrific. Skylar, what is it? Skylar Gizmodo. I butcher his name every single time. Jimmy Olsen. Dude, one of the unsung heroes. The woman who plays Ava Tessmacher. Oh, what is her name? Sarah Sampaio, the unsung hero. I think we can all agree from the movie, but down to Nicholas Holtz, Lex Luthor. Just man, what a great film! What a great visual. A different approach to this beautiful and light metropolis that we're getting. I'm really happy. One thing that I really liked about this movie, and we're gonna have quite a bit of spoilers because it's been a little bit of time now. But the one of my favorite facts about this movie is the fact that it wasn't dark. It wasn't Batman versus Superman. It wasn't Justice League. It wasn't anything like that. Nearly all of this movie takes place during the daytime. The fights during the daytime, which I just absolutely adore that. I so many movies, a lot of the special effects, they hide a lot from within the dark. They hide a lot of special effects, a lot of flaws and things like that in the nighttime. And I think that's for the reason that's probably a lot of times that's the reason that these scenes take place at night. But with Superman, so much of it is during the day, and it just lends to it. It just kind of goes to show that this is a bright metropolis. It's a hopeful metropolis comparatively to, like, say, Gotham City, which we are anticipating being pretty dark most of the time. And I would love the opportunity to see us have a lot of more daytime fights within Gotham City. It looks good in that matter. But I loved this movie. So many great characters. Anthony Carrigan's Metamorpho. Maria Gabrielle Dalferia is the engineer. David Cornsweet's You Know Who. If you haven't seen the movie, I don't want to spoil too much. If you have, you know what I'm talking about. But man, I love this movie. It made me feel like a little kid again. The score I want to talk about. The score was just doing everything for me. I think it was John Williams, right? It is. I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but John Murphy. I'm sorry, John Williams. John Murphy. Music by John Murphy and David Fleming. Man, it just hit all the right notes. The tones. I love that electric guitar that they kind of implemented into that Superman theme. It was just beautiful. Henry Braham, longtime collaborator with James Gunn. He did Guardians of the Galaxy 3. He did Suicide Squad and Guardians of the Galaxy 2. He probably did Guardians of the Galaxy 1, if I'm being completely honest, once we get a little bit down the line. No, it doesn't look like he did. But wonderful work, wonderful cinematography. They did some new and exciting things. The scroll at the beginning of the movie, I think, was a wonderful addition. We don't really want to get into the battle of Krypton and him coming over here as a baby and growing up and all that good stuff. It kind of really throws us right into the middle of it. Just it does the whole 300 years ago type of thing, then 30 years ago, then 3 years ago, then so on and so forth. 3 hours ago, I think, even. And I really liked that intro. Crypto, a character that a lot of people weren't sure was going to work. I think that was one character that in a lot of the trailers, people were relatively unsure about. They weren't sure how crypto was going to work into the overall story, how much crypto we were going to get. And I think because of that, it became a bit more of a negative discourse. But I think it worked out perfectly. The character itself is supposed to be an amalgamation of Crypto, the character in the comics, the dog in the comics, but also of James Gunn's dog, Uzo, I think is the name, where he finds a ton of inspiration. We know James Gunn finds a ton of inspiration, I think, from his own life, and he tends to incorporate that, whether it's with animals or it's his love of music, and I think it works out so well here. Man, David Cornsweet, he is our Superman. I mean, he looks it, he sounds it. And I'm so excited to see more of this character moving on. James Gunn has said, the next time we see him isn't necessarily going to probably be a Superman 2, which is, it seems like we're going to see him in other projects. Maybe he'll probably show up in Supergirl, let's be completely honest. But yeah, I don't want to spend too much time on this because I don't want to spoil too much. And I know that we have a lot to cover, but man, Superman is fantastic. I loved it. I can't wait to see it again. If you haven't, take your asses to the theaters. Go see it in IMAX if you can. What a wonderful movie. And I loved it. Getting into something else. What else? I know what we can talk about. Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat released its trailer. Let's see if we can. No, let's remove that. And then let's bring up another share screen. We're going to show this because I think this will be nice to just run in the background. Okay. Where you at? Anyway. All right. Yeah, so Mortal Kombat, the trailer came out, Mortal Kombat 2, and dude, this thing looks sick. For those of you who didn't catch Mortal Kombat 1, I'm sure it's probably far and few in between. But this trailer looks dope. You know, the first Mortal Kombat, I think what the issue that a lot of people had was that there wasn't a lot of fighting. It was a lot of like, let's go find these people and then kind of trying to avoid the bad guys. No tournament, not much fighting, a lot of world building. But it seems like now we kind of know where we stand within this franchise, which is a nice thing. So they're kind of dropping us right in it. This movie is obviously, the trailer is very Johnny Cage eccentric. WD did this exciting thing where they, what is this? They did this exciting thing where they put a countdown via their YouTube, and then they released a little trailer for Johnny Cage. Some of these faux pas movies that he's been in, Rebel Without a Cage, and so on and so forth, for a faux film called Uncaged, something Fury Uncaged. And I think that's just wonderful. I love this type of like meta marketing where they're kind of putting out all this content that doesn't necessarily exist, but it gets you hyped for the additional story. Some of these movies you're seeing in here, you'll see in that Uncaged Fury. So I highly suggest you check it out. But man, this trailer is doing for me. We're seeing a lot of the return cast. We're seeing, Raiden. We're seeing Sonya Blade. We're seeing Jax. We're seeing Cole Young, who obviously a lot of people had a problem with the first movie, introducing a brand new character to kind of kick off this new franchise, this new world. But maybe this will be an opportunity for them to utilize that character a little bit more and maybe dive a little bit deeper into some new lore. We're seeing Scorpion. We're seeing Bihan, the Sub-Zero, or maybe Noob Saibot. Let's see how we're going to get him. We're seeing a character that a lot of people have been excited to see, and I kind of want to peel back on it because I kind of breezed through it, but Baraka, baby. We're getting Baraka after all this time. We're getting him. I know that we've kind of had our versions of him in different projects. I don't know if we've seen him in television projects at all. Yeah, he's a fan favorite. It's definitely within the video games. So it's exciting that we're getting him in this franchise. We're getting Shao Kahn. We're getting some great dialogue. We're getting the Johnny Cage. It's showtime. And I'm excited for this. Along with this brand new trailer, they also released a whole set of brand new posters for every single character that's coming out in the movie. And I wanted to show them all one by one, some sick ass fatalities. But I don't think that's going to take it a little bit too long to show them all one by one. So I think what's going to be better is that if we just kind of maybe show, I think we have one that has a little bit of everything in it. So Mortal Kombat 2 looks sick, coming out October 24th. And this is the poster. You're going to see we have a lot of the different characters in here. We have our Johnny Cage. We have our Bihan. We got Raiden, we got Jade, Sonya Blade. Oh, Sindel, that's another one that I forgot to mention. Liu Kang, always a fan favorite. Some of these I can't even see. I'm assuming some of these might be Scorpion or maybe these are Bihan. They're kind of small. Scorpion, Shang Tsung, Baraka, Jax, Kano. I almost forgot about Kano, Cole Young, Kung Lao, and Shao Kahn. Again, this movie looks sick. I grew up playing these games and I really loved all these games growing up. Even when the kind of games kind of pivoted to PC, those games were super fun. My dad took me to see the first Mortal Kombat, which was rated R whenever that came out. I think that was like 97 or something like that. 97 or 98. I can't pinpoint, but somewhere along those lines. And I've always loved this franchise. And it's always been unfortunate to me that it couldn't really kind of get the right footing because I think there's just so much potential within this. And if not in this Simon McQuoid directed universe, we'll see how it performs. Hopefully it performs really well, because if it does well and this movie's good, I want more. I'm sure other people will want more, but we'll see. But that is Mortal Kombat 2. Check out the Uncaged Fury trailer that they have up currently on YouTube. Catch out the Mortal Kombat 2 in general official trailer that's also on YouTube. And check out all these posters. Go, if you have a chance, go to our Instagram or to our TikTok. That's going to be on you'll see it below here. That's at Head Trip HQ, and you'll be able to see all these posters, bigger size of them, all individual, and kind of go through all of that. So that's Mortal Kombat 2. Exciting. I'm psyched for that. Let's get into something a little newer, something that dropped also a couple of days ago, which is Stranger Things. The new trailer for Stranger Things was released, and we'll pull that up as well. Let's share this, and let's go full screen with this. Boom. So Stranger Things, it's out. The Stranger Things, finally, Stranger Things 5 is out. And I think we're hyped. I think this is one of those series again where, I think the biggest negative aspect regarding Stranger Things typically is that, it takes so long to film between seasons, and these characters start getting older and older. And we're gonna start seeing some of these characters that were like the new younger characters are now much older than they were just the previous season ago. But man, as soon as I think I'm whatever on this franchise, I love it. It's cool. It's nostalgic, but man, my interest kind of starts to dwindle. This trailer just erased all that. Man, this looks big. It is absolutely the culmination of every single season that's come before, obviously. But it's like they're taking it up a notch. It is just seems like it's just nonstop story elements of just action and spending a lot of time in the Upside Down. And I can't wait to dive back into this series. We have all of our return characters. We even see some shout outs to Eddie Munson. I think we saw with the little gravesite with Dustin visiting, some wonderful visual effects. And I think that's one of the reasons that maybe this season took so long. I think it took them a while, obviously, for the Duffy brothers, whatever they refer to themselves, not to only write the story and make sure that it was just, pinpoint on point to really send this series off. But you could see so much of this is action packed. So much of it takes place in the Upside Down and these huge battles. So I can understand why it took a really long time to get this off the ground finally and get this season kind of up and running and put together. But man, I'm psyched. These new look at Vecnas. I mean, I know we're obviously getting some deaths. We don't know who's going to die. I don't know who's going to die. If I had to guess who's going to die, I'm going to say probably Hopper and probably Will Byers. I'm thinking if you have some of these characters, if you think about some characters that are really taking on the Upside Down, you had Eddie Munson, you have 11, and you have Will Byers. Eddie Munson's gone, obviously. I don't think we're going to lose 11. But I do think that maybe Will Byers, he's the other big dog when it comes to the underground and all that good stuff. But yeah, I'm excited to see it. I can't wait for this season to come out. It's coming out in 2 parts. I think if I remember correctly, it's at the end of this year. Is it the end of this year? Please, for the love of God. Yeah, it's coming out this year. Volume 1. You see right there, Volume 1 anticipated, because I can't get my shit together. Volume 1, November 26th, and Volume 2 is coming out Christmas. So 2-part situation, which is smart. This is the final season, so I don't really mind all that much. But we have some dates. At least we have some dates. We have the episode count for all episodes. So looks like for episode 1, The Crawl, going to be 2 hours and 10 minutes. Episode 2, titled, sorry, this is really, really small for me. The Vanishing of Holly Wheeler, which is going to be 2 hours and 25 minutes. The Turnbow Trap, 2 hours and I think it's 5 minutes, 8 minutes. Sorcerer, 2 hours and 5 minutes. Episode 5, Shock Jock, 2 hours and 13 minutes. Episode 6, Escape from Kamazatz, 2.5 hours. Episode 7, The Bridge, 3 hours and 40 minutes. 3 hours and 40 minutes. That's insane. That's 2 movies. That's 2 middle of the road movies right there. And then the final episode, episode 8, The Right Side Up, clocking in at 3 hours. Wild. I mean, these runtimes are insane. I'm not mad at it. I'm kind of glad because there's nothing worse than one of these new episodes these new seasons of Stranger Things comes out. And then the whole thing is spoiled after like the first day or the second day because everybody's already ran through the entire thing. And it kind of really leaves no one any space or time to really kind of run it through themselves, which is unfortunate. So I like the fact that these episodes are quite long. We get to spend a lot of time in this final season in this world, which is fantastic because after that, this is it. After this, that is it. After that, this is it. Not after this, that is it. Which I guess probably also works. But I'm excited. I want to know if I want to get your guys' take on these run times, because I know for a lot of people they're gonna say, dude, I barely have time to run through an hour-long episode and run through 8 hours of a final season. Because looking at this, we have like what 3, 6, 7, 8, 3, 6, 8, 10, 12. I mean, this is like a nearly like almost like a 20-hour season. Maybe not, maybe 15 to 20 hours, somewhere in there. That's crazy. That's a lot. That's maybe it is like 20 hours. I have no idea, but that's a big season right there. But I'm not mad at it. This gives me the opportunity to watch a couple episodes. The next day, watch a couple more episodes, and then one day watch one big ass movie. I mean, some of these movies are just like entire film lengths. So I can't be too mad at it. I'm excited about it. I'm really interested to see kind of the career path that all these actors go once this series comes out, because after that, this is it. And for a lot of these actors, Finn Wolfhard, Noah Schnapp, Caleb McLaughlin, Gaten Matazaro, I believe it is, Joe Keery, and all the others. Some of these people haven't really had the best opportunities outside of this series. Millie Bobby Brown has been doing a lot, which is fine. A lot of work with Netflix, and it's kind of come a little lackluster. I mean, personally, she's had the Enola Holmes stuff, and I can't necessarily say that I'm the biggest fan of it. It just seems like she's trying to grow up so fast and be this adult, be this kind of like version of today's Hollywood heartthrob and take on these projects, but it's not really landing. It's kind of the same way with, I love Chris Evans. I loved so much that Chris Evans did before Avengers, even like some of the indie stuff that he did, even after Captain America, like, what's that one? Iceman, I think it is, with Michael Shannon. That movie, that's such a good movie. And he's in that, even though it's a smaller part, like, and Sunshine, what a wonderful movie. Sunshine is such a good movie that I really wish we got a sequel. And apparently there was a sequel kind of in the works and something was supposed to happen, but that never came to fruition. But after like the better part of the Avengers movies and Captain America movies, he hasn't had the best luck. He had a little taste of luck with that series that he did. I can't really remember the name of it. He came out with Apple Plus, that series Ghosted. But it makes me a little nervous that, some of these actors within the Stranger Things world, I don't know what their careers look like after this. And I'm hoping nothing but the best, because I really like a lot of these actors. And obviously, oh God, the freaking sheriff. Why can't I think of his name right now? Thunderbolts, the main guy. Oh my God. I can't just move past this because it's going to drive me crazy unless I'm Hopper, the character that's freaking Hopper. And why can't I think of his name right now? Because he's been in so many things outside of these. Even you guys remember that he was in Green Hornet? He was like he was David Harbour. Oh my God, I don't know why that slipped my mind. David Harbour. Remember he was in Green Hornet as like a bad cop or something like that. But yeah, man, I can't wait for Stranger Things 5. I'm excited that like we don't have a lot of time to go. Like it's July. We're getting towards the tail end of July, and it's coming out November, December. So that's exciting. I'm excited for it. I'm sure a lot of people are excited for it. But we'll see how that looks. Let's see. What did we talk about? We talked about some movies. We talked about Superman. We talked about Mortal Kombat. We talked about Stranger Things. This last thing I wanted to talk about, and I thought this would be a good opportunity to kind of bring this up, is that James Gunn, he's doing his press tour. He's doing his junkets. In fact, I think he just finished the press tour for Superman, and he's just been doing nothing but interviews for probably the better part of like 8 months now. I might be a little bit off on that, but he's just been going. He's been doing a ton of interviews. And his final interview was with Josh Horowitz on the Happy, Sad, Confused podcast. And he was able to talk about a lot of information. He talked about, Superman and how this came to be, and how, how you know, he wasn't originally going to do Superman. When they had reached out, they talked about, they asked him, what do we like to do? And he brought up Superman, um, but they weren't really ready for that. He wasn't really ready for that. But that's when they needed the sequel to Suicide Squad, and that's kind of when he came into the picture. And he had some other projects apparently that he was that he wanted to kind of take on outside of those. And I think the one major project was crypto. He wanted to do like a crypto movie where like Superman kind of chasing after crypto, and crypto kind of getting into all this chaos and stuff like that. That ended up not happening. But it's kind of like interesting to kind of see how that kind of came about. And I love something he says in this interview is that his biggest risk within this movie was, throwing in like a 15-minute, dialogue with Lois Lane and Superman. That was his biggest risk of this movie. He goes on to talk about, the music and working with John Murphy. And, he talks about, doesn't necessarily like to say it's a crutch to kind of consistently have, music, not modern music, but have music and scenes that kind of play off each other. Whereas this one, this is much more composer heavy. It's a very different vibe music wise compared to any of the Gardens movies or even Suicide Squad in that regard. So he goes on to a little bit of that. One thing he talked about was Henry Cavill, which I thought was interesting. And, there's a lot of talk going around that like, oh, Henry Cavill's in talks to join the DCU, and James Gunn's been talking to them. But I would like to elaborate a little bit on that, because in the interview he talks about how that worked. And supposedly, the same day, and I don't know if it's actually the same day, maybe he's just being a little facetious, but he says the same day that that they inked their deals, him and Peter Safran inked their deals to become the heads of the DCU, is the same day that they announced Henry Cavill was coming back, which was kind of like a really bizarre way to have kind of gone about that. But they said, it wasn't kind of like this, it wasn't like this, them trying to be sketchy or them sending him a text message. They sat down with him and they talked about it with him about what they're planning on doing, and they're moving away from his version of Superman, and that he took it like a champ, and he was a good guy about it, because everybody loves Henry Cavill. He is just he's our in our zeitgeist, he is like one of our pop culture kings. Not only has he been our Superman and all the projects that he's been in, but he's a nerd too. He's a computer, he's a gamer, and he he loves Warhammer. He loves all these projects that he wants to take on. I mean, The Witcher. So I think forever in our hearts, Henry Cavill. But really feel bad about that, because at the same time that they announced it, they immediately had to reel that back, and we kind of know what that looked like. That resulted in him losing Reacher. That resulted in him, I'm sure, like turning away a lot of other projects. He talks about the scroll. The scroll at the beginning of the movie of Superman wasn't always in there, but that he liked it because it really set the stage for where the not only the movie, but where the DCU just in general is going to go, with inspiration from Star Wars. And he talks about that in the interview, about his love for the scroll and its ability to kind of set the stage and not have to kind of be so gung-ho and rely on an intro of a movie that kind of tells stuff that you don't necessarily need. He talks about the monkeys. Spoiler warning: all the hater monkeys, social media monkeys. Talks about that, and Josh asks, if that was kind of more of a reflection on what's going on in his real life. And he says he never even thought about it. Says he never even made that correlation. There's a lot of talk about that wonderful speech between Superman and Lex, towards the end of that movie, and the way that they recreated that. I thought it was really cool that the way that they created that scene, and they filmed it a few times. Because if you've seen the movie, you know how it kind of comes into Superman and it kind of goes to Lex for his response, and then back around to Superman and all that. And it's really, really fun. I love these behind the scenes conversations where I'm a big fan of what happens behind the camera and how these movies get made. And so it's just always fun to see kind of how that works. He talks about Henry Cavill auditioning for the role. Obviously, everybody knows that Nicholas Hoult was also a big contender for the role, and I think within the top three, it was also them two and Tom Brittney. He states Tom Brittney was another, someone that he really has been looking to collaborate with, but just at the time, obviously when David Cornsweet came in, I think once David Cornsweet came in, everybody just kind of knew. Bradley Cooper was apparently also in the talks to play Lex. I didn't know that before I went to Nicholas Hoult, and also before, that role, they ended up kind of giving him that Jor-El role. But, I thought that would have been a really great role. But I think it's a smart role smart idea to go with somebody a little bit more Superman's contemporary. I think given the times that this movie takes place, I think that is just the smarter move. And I think Nicholas Hoult, again, I want to reiterate that Nicholas Hoult is just a savage. James Gunn talks about his relationship with both actors, David Cornsweet and Nicholas Hoult, and the differences in working with them. And while they're both fantastic actors, David Cornsweet, just like Christopher Reeves, he's a Juilliard. Not only is he a nerd at his very, very, very core, watch some of these interviews with David Cornsweet. It's impressive. And he's just one of my new favorite actors that's on my radar, not just because of Superman, but just because he's a nerd at his heart. And I think having Henry Cavill and now having David Cornsweet, I don't think that we could have been luckier. But he talks about Nicholas Hoult, who's another unsung hero, how he just nails his takes. And we all know that he's fantastic, from Fury to The Menu, even way back. Warm Bodies is, one of the first go-arounds where I came across Nicholas Hoult. Of course, X-Men First Class, where he was Beast. Not the best iteration of Beast, but he was still good in that role. And we love Nicholas Hoult. And it's always a pleasure to kind of get him on the screen. They talk about the Jor-El message, and for those of you wondering, I don't think it can be stated enough online. I don't know if there's discourse or if you're still curious, but the message that his parents give, the second half of the parents give, is very much actual. That's not mincing. It's not, in the movie they say like, oh, is this fake, or you faked it and all that, and Lex says it's not fake. And according to James Gunn, it's not fake. It is very much it is very much part of the story. I don't know if it's going to haunt Clark or Superman moving forward. It seems like he pretty much deals with that at the end of the movie. He deals with that, especially with how the movie ends with him seeing as he gets healed, and they put his parents up on the screen. So there's all that. What's he talking about? He talks about the Justice League mural and a lot of the characters that we see on there. I think the Hood is somebody that we see, and there's questions about like Jay Garrick and some of these other characters that I'm not sure. Dr. Fate, I think, is the one that he mentions. Dr. Fate is in there. Jay Garrick, Alan Scott, Green Lantern, I think, is in it. I'm pretty sure he is in it. I don't have it in here, but he talks about if there's any other actors or any characters that I want to kind of throw in there, some of your Black Canaries and Martian Manhunter, but it doesn't look like that. I'm really excited to see how some of these other characters kind of. You hear that? How we hear some of these other characters how this world is going to introduce some of these other characters. We have Supergirl that's coming, Millie Alcock. We had spoiler warning if you haven't seen that. She's in the end of this episode. She makes a little cameo. We know we have Lanterns coming out with we're gonna have John Stewart and our my brain is absolutely mush today. Why can't I think of Hal Jordan? It's coming up as I'm searching for it. Kyle Chandler, our Hal Jordan, Aaron Pierre, our John Stewart. And we're getting Nathan Fillion again. His Guy Gardner's coming back, and he talks recently about returning to it, and that this is the most F-bombs I think he said he's ever used in any kind of project. Again, we're going to see him again, as well as Hawkgirl, in the Peacemaker season 2 that's coming out, and that James Gunn says that Peacemaker season 2 is definitely much of a leeway into maybe like the future of not only Superman, but the future of the DCU. And he says that, this is very much a project that you want to pay attention to. It's not just like, if people saw Peacemaker season 1 and they think, well, for the most part, Peacemaker season 2 isn't going to have a lot to do with the DCU, but it is. He's saying it is. We got our first mention of pocket universes within Peacemaker season 1. with his dad and all that. I forget what they name it. But yeah, man, I am really excited. He talks about. I think the last thing I really want to talk about is he talks about. But actually, before we move on to that, he talks about some of the other projects that are going on. The Authority has been a really tough nut to crack. And apparently the writer of The Authority has now moved on to a different project that's a lot more further along. And he hasn't mentioned what that project is. And we don't know what that project is yet. So he does say that there are projects that haven't been announced that are being worked on. He talks about, Clayface that's being worked on right now. Obviously, that is another project that had quite a bit of movement. It's going to be off of a script from Mike Flanagan, which is very exciting. They just announced Tom Rhys-Harris is going to play the titular character. I don't think they've announced. I know they had it as Matt Hagen, but I don't know if it's going to be like a Basil Carlo or like what they're going to do with that. James Watkins, he's going to be directing it. You guys might know him from some lesser known projects, but he was the recent director of Speak No Evil. That was the movie that came out with James McAvoy and Mackenzie Davis just recently, which is also a really, really, really good film. If you haven't seen that, Wonder Woman is another project that's very much priority, and I think that's kind of kicking off and moving a lot quicker than a lot of other projects. Flash, Aquaman, those are characters that we're not going to be seeing for a while. Jason Momoa is in Supergirl. What else? Last thing I want to talk about regarding that is Batman. He didn't really have any news in regards to when we're going to see Batman. We don't know if this is going to be how far down the road. But if I'm being honest, it seems like we might get some information here in the next couple years, or we might see him in the next couple of years. We saw his silhouette, or we saw a version of him in Creature Commandos. That's the version, that's technically the version that exists in this world. But also, there hasn't been any, conversation, or at least nothing in regards to hiring an actor. There's been a lot of talk about different people to play the role. And he talks about, Alan Ritchson, and how he really is a big fan of Alan Ritchson, both as an actor, and as a person. And some of the other rumored people who have kind of gone on to be rumored for that role, but nothing for that just yet. No announcements otherwise. But if you haven't checked out that interview, it's definitely worth checking out. It's Josh Horowitz's Happy, Sad, Confused podcast. That is on, that's going to be on YouTube. I'm not sure where else on all other things you can catch it at. Yeah, that's it. I think that's going to do it for today's inaugural first episode. I know it was I tried to cover a lot of bases. I tried to kind of keep things kind of flowing pretty consistently and make sure that you guys had enough information. A lot of the stuff that I've talked about also, I've covered, and I talked about on all our socials. So if you have the opportunity, I would really love and appreciate it if you could hit the like, if you could hit the subscribe, if you could hit the notification so you know when new episodes are coming out. If you would like to follow us on our social medias, I know I have it going down here at the bottom, but whether it's X, Instagram and Threads, it is TikTok, any of our social medias, they are going to be at Headtrip HQ. This show obviously is at Headtrip Show. The link, if you want to send it to anybody, that probably might get changed at some point. I don't know. Our Twitch is Headtrip Media. That'll get changed to Headtrip HQ. Obviously, we're on Kick. You could stream this on Twitch or on X or on Kick. We're streaming on all those platforms right now. So if you're watching this, thank you for tuning in. I'm excited to build this. Lastly, I want to say I'm excited about this project. I'm excited to do something new. I'm excited to build a new community, something that is not mine, but something that's going to be ours. I'm excited to have some interviews on here. I'm going to talk to a lot of different people, whether it's from, hopefully we do some interviews from TV and film eventually at some point. Some local retailers, comic book shops, some musical artists, anybody that wants to come on and is a fan of these things and has something to say and wants to have a discussion. I'm happy to have those discussions. If you're a fan of the show, put your information on the comics. If there's a certain project you guys are excited to see, excited to talk about, put that in here. If you think I'm missing anything, throw it in the comics or in the comments. I'm excited to talk about all of it, and I will talk about all of it, and I'll talk about it with you guys. I think that's going to do it. That's going to wrap up today's episode. thank you guys so much for stopping by. Thank you guys for hanging out and spending some time. Thank you for watching this. If you're just watching it on your own time, or if you're listening to it on Spotify or Apple Podcast, thank you for checking it out there too. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to build this show. I'm excited to build this community. Until we talk again, I love you guys. Have a beautiful day. Take care of each other. Thanks for watching Head Trip.